Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my brain health series. This is Dr. Sarah. I am a naturopathic and functional medicine practitioner and an essential oils expert. We have discussed in previous videos the importance of nutrition and movement for optimizing brain health. Now we're going to move into another area that is often underestimated and maybe often overlooked. And this is mindset and stress management and how it increases brain resiliency. From a naturopathic and functional medicine perspective, mindset is not separate from our physiology. In fact, it directly influences how our body responds, adapts, and recovers from stress. What I want to walk through in this video are some practical ways to support the brain and nervous system using intentional practices. And these are things that you've probably heard of or are familiar with. Things such as mindfulness, meditation, breath work, reflection, and learning how to pause and reset your physiology by changing your perspective. So let's start with the stress response, because when we understand that, we can understand how these different techniques intercepted the stress response and help us with our recovery and rebalancing all of our systems. So the human stress response is designed for short-term survival. When there's a perceived stress, like if we're out in the savannah and we're running from a lion, the body gets activated and it activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight response. And what we end up doing is releasing various mediators to help us in running faster, using our oxygen and our glucose more efficiently. Things such as cortisol and adrenaline are released into our system. And what this does is it helps our body respond to stress in an effective way to keep us safe. After that, and the threat is over, the body is meant to return to a state of equilibrium and go into a parasympathetic state, which is our rest, repair, and recovery mode. The problem is that with modern life, stress tends to be ongoing. It is not a single event, it is constant input. We have deadlines, we have technology steering our attention away from everything, and emotional demands, not to mention news that's upsetting and global events. So the body can't distinguish between that lion on the savannah and our brain being stressed out over these various factors. And what ends up happening is that over time, this can create a chronic state of stress. And it can lead to what I call, in my practice with my clients, a nervous system imbalance that is chronic. And this is where the body has a hard time getting out of that state of activation and returning into baseline. So here is where mindset becomes clinically relevant, because how you perceive stress and how you respond to it actually influences that physiology. So in other words, if you don't view deadlines as stressful, then you don't get the stress response, right? So what we see are two patterns. Either someone goes through a stress or a trauma and they move towards more resiliency, right? They actually become more adept at the ability to respond to stress and actually come up from the situation better off than where they left it. We also see another side, which is post-traumatic depletion, where they can't return to that baseline and they actually end up worse off. And the mindset and our coping strategies are two determining factors that determine the direction that we're going to go. So these concepts connect directly to what we see in research around the placebo effect. Many of you have probably heard about that. It's about how our beliefs and our expectations can create measurable physiological changes. They use these in scientific studies to go up if an intervention is actually as successful as it was based on just the physiological effect of that, or if our belief intercepted and made the treatment more effective than it would have been just because we believe that it's going to work. There's also the flip side of that called the nocebo effect, and where negative expectations can contribute to negative outcomes. So what we can see is that mindset is not just this conceptual thing that we do for positive affirmations. It actually has a biological impact. So what can we do with this information? We're going to go through several tools, and probably the most familiar for most people is mindfulness and mindfulness meditation. So it doesn't have to be these long sitting down periods of meditating. It can even just be short, consistent practices of just bringing more awareness into the moment and being more mindful of where we are at a given time. And what this can do is it can affect our attention, bring us back into our body, help with emotional regulation, and increase our neuroplasticity, which is the flexibility in our brain, creating these new neural pathways. So we move them from a state of stress to a state of calm. And when people tend to do this over a period of time, what my clients report is that they develop more space between their trigger and their response. So instead of reacting in an autonomic way that might not be the best for their relationship, their self, or their nervous system, there's a pause there where they have time to get out of this limbic brain, this emotional brain, and into the executive part of their brain, and where they can actually respond in a different manner. And over time, this offers us to make different choices and also can help to regulate our nervous system when we're up against the same triggers. So that's mindfulness. Meditation can also train our nervous system to calm down when we just focus on our breath or just focus on a saying. This too can help regulate the nervous system. Now, breath work is a second technique, and this directly influences your nervous system because slow, intentional breathing actually stimulates our vagus nerve, which is very popular right now. Everyone's talking about the vagus nerve. That's because so many people are in a constant state of stress. When we do certain techniques, we can actually activate part of the vagus nerve that activates this parasympathetic system, that rest and digest part, and helps to calm us down. Not only does the parasympathetic support actually help with calming our nervous system and helping our brain get out of this sense of alertness and into this more forward thinking processes, but it also supports our digestion, reduces our stress hormone, and allows our mind just to settle down in general. So even a few minutes of breath work can make a big difference. Just combining that even with essential oils or your favorite scent, you're going to get a double boost of brain regulation because the pathways for olfactory stimulation, we know, further affect mood, brain, and nervous system tone. So we have mindfulness, we have breath work, and then journaling is actually a mindset tool. And what this does is it gets us out of our emotional brain and forces us to use our prefrontal cortex or our executive functioning part so we can externalize our thoughts, process our emotions, and shift our internal narratives. Some simple approaches that I found to work well for my clients are helping them to write down what they find most stressful, questioning if the worst outcome is really going to happen, asking themselves if it's true, and then actually reframing it into something positive that could come out of that stressful event. I also love to have them do short, what we call mind dumps at the end of the day. So this is super helpful if someone is ruminating and worried. It gets everything down on paper and it can help organize the mental load and help somebody kind of just get it all out and then be able to go into sleep feeling a little bit more relief. So we have the journaling there. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is super simple. Anyone can do this. It's just pausing. It's literally just in the middle of a stressful moment or just throughout your day, you just stop and you just tune in and look at how you're feeling, look at what you're thinking, creating a pattern interrupt of autonomic processes and automatic behavior responses, and just being more mindful. So, really, the intentional pause is kind of a form of mindfulness in and of itself. But over time, these pauses can help retrain the body respond to stress. So, rather than initially just going into that reaction and just going along for it along the ride and becoming that boulder down the hill, we can actually create this pattern interrupt and intercept it. That's why I love essential oils too, right? Because it creates that pattern interrupt in the stress response with smell. So, putting this all together, what happens is when people use these practices, it shifts their awareness and their state of calmness increases. And it doesn't happen from more effort and trying hard. It's actually relaxing into it and recognizing what the body needs by tuning in and calming the mind and body. What could this look like for you in some simple steps? Waking up in the morning and just taking a few deep intentional breaths, calming your nervous system instead of just jumping into your day and onto your phone. It could be pausing in between tasks, especially in between tasks that you know are going to be, quote, stressful. It could be a short reflective journal entry at the end of the day. It doesn't need to add more to your schedule. These should feel calming and nurturing, but it can actually add to it in the fact that you will feel more fulfilled. So remember, healing doesn't mean you have to do all this stuff perfectly and set a timer and make sure it's absolutely done in the correct way. In fact, if you pressure yourself too much to do everything all at once and do it perfectly, you might not do it at all. And then the point is gone, right? So it's about consistency, it's about awareness. And each time that you create this moment of pause or regulation, you're supporting your brain and your nervous system, and you're helping yourself with focus, awareness, and attention. You're moving out of that stress response and into a state of calm where you can have better focus, memory, and cognitive support. This over time can build resilience, clarity, and stability. So I hope this was helpful for you today, my friends. And if you'd like to go deeper, I have additional resources on brain health, such as using nutrition, movement, and my brain health supplement protocol, as well as a full referenced article with all of the details and all of the research that goes along with this video if you want to dive in deeper. And if you want ongoing support, you can join my newsletter and wellness community. And I will also be the first to know if you subscribe when my brain health reset program drops. So click on the link, subscribe, like the video, visit my website. Your support means more than you will ever know. Take gentle care, and thank you for being here and listening, and I'll see you in the next video.